the purpose of our conversation, we're on the quest to find flow. And, as I'm sure you've known through your life and career, that moment of flow is absolutely elusive to find. So we figured the best way to sort of enter into this conversation was with a big question, knowing that it's likely going to open up a lot of doors where we could take this and all of the different elements in your life that have helped you sort of find flow with engineering leadership. So I was wondering if we could start at the beginning of your time at CircleCI. And so I think the interesting part of that story is you start off having managed about 8 people. And since that time, you've gone to manage over 200 people. Can you tell us a little more about that story of growth? And so, what was that like? What did you learn? And what are the big moments you reflect on from that period?
First of all, I want to be very clear. I haven't figured this all out. I think flow is a really interesting thing, and I think that as a software developer, it's one of those things that I experienced and absolutely loved. Right? Oh my! Is it 5 o'clock in the morning, and all I've eaten is like these Cheetos or whatever. But I don't even want to go to bed still because I'm loving what I'm accomplishing right now. And I do think there are other places I've experienced that in life. We can come back to that in like whatever sports, other things. We come back and talk about those if they're interesting. I just want to be really clear. I've been thinking about this concept with respect to leadership lately. Of what would that feel like, and can you capture that? And I do believe it's possible, but it has to look a bit different, right? And so to answer your question, going back to early days of CircleCI, I don't know what the exact numbers are. I think there were 14 people in the company, or at least I've said that enough now that I believe it myself. And there were three of us who got acquired through an organization called Distiller. We were doing CI/CD for mobile. CircleCI was obviously very small back then, or relatively, but was doing really well. Had a great customer base. And we felt like standalone mobile wasn't going to be as interesting as packaging that together and bringing the bit that we had built to what CircleCI was doing. And of those three folks, one of my two other partners in the business, also with CircleCI, Jim Rose, who's the CEO and has been the CEO since sometime in 2015. So we joined um, mid 2014, August 2014, and and it was a very different place, unsurprisingly. CircleCI was primarily engineers. Which is unsurprising for a company of that size, particularly a company building products for engineers, right? There was a lot of intuitive sense of this is what our customers are looking for. This is where the opportunity is. It wasn't a lot of focus group, you know, necessary to just say, okay, we're software developers. This is the problem we have. Can we solve that problem for other folks? Um, and so it was fairly flat, I would say. I mean, also probably unsurprising. Just Paul, the founder, was the CEO at the time, and just a bunch of folks doing great work trying to solve the problem of the customer that they understood. But there was a desire, a need, all of those things to grow and to continue to build the business, or to start building what I'll call the business, which I hate that word, but I don't have another one for a second. All of the other elements of what does it mean to build an organization like the organization we have now, right? Marketing, sales, G&A, like basically anything that wasn't just people with hands on keyboards writing code. Um, and starting to think about putting some management structure in place. And there was sort of just some fortunate timing, I guess, in that we had joined because we had built a product that was interesting to the organization, like to CircleCI and the folks that were there. But Jim and I we had been working on a different business for a few years, and it was only the tail of that became um, Distiller. And so we had been in the industry for a pretty long time, so had a decent amount of experience, both building small companies, growing those in some cases, working in slightly larger organizations, just bringing a lot of different dimensions to the table. And effectively, Paul said, "Hey, I'm actually interested in getting some support doing this. I don't know if building a company is the thing that I'm really excited about right now versus just building product and like thinking about where the product is going." It was very just sort of this realization from Paul, "Hey, this isn't really what I want to be doing. It seems like you might be able to help us out here, whatever." And so it was a bit of an opportunistic moment to just say, "Okay, sure, let's try this and see how it goes." Right. And I think the number 8 that I joked about was actually 8 prior to this organization had 8 people, I think was the largest team I had ever managed. Because that's what happens when you build a bunch of startups as your career, right? This is like not a lot of people around to manage. And so, um, we just started on the path, and sort of like, it sounds absurd, but like one thing leads to another, and then you have a lot of people all of a sudden, right? And I think one of the things that I was reflecting on with respect to that is when you sort of get promoted through roles, there's a whole bunch of external governors, let's say, on the rate at which you do that, right? Oh, it feels like you're ready now to manage 20 people or 40 people or manage some managers because you have a department or however you want to think about it, right? But when you start a company or end up leading a very small company, the the decision about how many people you end up managing is external forces on the company, right? How much are we succeeding? How much revenue do we have? How many people do we need to fulfill the needs to meet that revenue? I don't know if I explained that well, but the company just grows, and your team grows to support it. And no one is saying, hey, it looks like you're ready for this. You know what I mean? It looks like you're ready for this. And so I think so often what you see is early leaders end up exiting because that transition happens faster than they were prepared for, right? And I'm not saying that I was perfectly prepared for that. I'm just saying, like, to me, that's a really fascinating dynamic because a lot of people coming into organizations are both opting in and getting selected in for the stage of the organization that you have. But when you look at these, I mean, I don't know, pick it, Zuck, right? That guy just thought he was going to run an organization of 3 people, and I have no idea how big Facebook is, right? But so you have to find different models, I guess is where I'm getting to with all this, to deal with that, because the I'm just going to stay at this level is not an option, right? I guess it's an option at some point. You could just say, you know what, we're going to hire someone to come in and take over or whatever. But um, and so I guess if your question is what was that like, that was like a lot of learning, right? I think we love expressions like beginner's mind. If you want to go from 10 people to 250 people, like, you have to know that every day is going to be different, right? Your set of problems is going to be new and different, and you probably don't have the answers. And so if you feel like you have to have the answers, you're probably going to put yourself in a worse position than if you build the frameworks to get the answers and just openly acknowledge, like, hey, I don't necessarily have all the answers here, but I'm totally willing to put in the work and figure it out. And I know how to get answers, right? I know how to get ideas. I know how to work with the people around me and bring them in, to find people outside and bring them in. And if you love to learn, there's really no better experience. If you feel, again, like you have to show up with everything, it's probably not going to work out that well. That'd be my take.